So we'll be creating this animation. Last day I was going through this Apple TV 4K animation. Look at this homepage ka scroll wave animation, and this is so sick. Yeah, look at this. The point the next section touches this TV, the content for that particular section starts appearing. Cool. Okay, so let's try to recreate this animation using Framer Motion. So I've already set up a project in Next.js 14 and I've also installed Framer Motion 11. I'm also using Tailwind CSS and of course TypeScript. And since this is Next 14, I have also used client directives to make the component client component since I'm using Framer Motion. Okay, let's do this. Oh, I need some content to be scrolled, right? So for that, let's create a dummy component. Oh man, I've been creating content for a long time. Dummy content. If I can type properly. Return div.height screen bg gray, I don't know, 500 maybe. I can't type. Right, I'll also add a border too, and then I'll just render the dummy component here. Great. And I should see a bunch of content. I don't need a lot of content here, so I'll just keep only 2, and the entire animation will go in between these 2 components. Cool. So what do you want? So I need this section, right? Okay, this section has like total 4 or 5 sections, like 1, 2, this is a dissolve animation, don't worry, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, so I'll be just creating 3 sections to show the animation, not like 6. Oh, then on top of that, I have this TV on absolute position, but also notice this is sticky. The content inside the TV content is getting changed, right? So I'll come back to this later, but before that, let's create 3 component for the section. So section under div into 3. So I'll just make class name height screen bg indigo. Is one of my favorite color. This is indigo 400, indigo 600, indigo 800. Yeah, I think this should give me 3 sections. Yes, 1, 2, 3. Great. And now let's talk about the sticky part. Okay, if you notice, this TV ka container is sticky, right? Is sticky at the top, but the element inside the sticky element is in absolute position, which is a TV. Let's try to create that. So inside the section, I have div with height screen bg red 500 sticky, of course, dot top 0 dot right 0, and it should work. Yeah, this is sticky, so all the elements are under this element. So I'll make the max width of this element as 50 viewport width, so that it's up. And now I can actually see like all the elements are being scrolled under this, right? And now I'll just make this right aligned. So ML auto is one way to do that. That is done. Great. Now the point is, this sticky element is still taking the slot, right? Like the white space, this is basically the sticky element. Now how can I put all these elements which is going to be scrolled under the sticky element? So for that I can use an old trick, which is negative margin. So I'll just wrap all the div and we'll go here and empty 100 viewport height, but in a negative way. Great, look at this. And now let's create the absolute position element, which is this TV. So I'll just go inside the div dot absolute position. I'll make it left 10, right 0, and vertically centered. So for that, top 1/2, translate 1/2. That is great. BG rate 300. Oh yeah, it's fine. And now it should show me something, but I don't have a height. So I have a height, but yeah, so 40 viewport height, I think it is fine. Yeah, great. We're getting there. So I can just now remove the BG rate 500 and it is looking good. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about the scroll animation. So the point is, we need to detect when the target element, so think about this indigo colored div is my target element. When this target element touches this TV cup bottom part, right, so we need to detect that. So for that we can use the useScroll hook of framer motion. If you have not heard about useScroll hook, it's just a utility hook. There are a lot of documentation, a lot of videos available on YouTube. You can just watch that. But one of the trickiest part to understand inside this useScroll is the offset, right? So I'll help you to understand this. So just go to Apple Scroll Mask. चश्मा पहनूं तो आंखों में दर्द होता है, नहीं पहनता हूँ तो दिखाई नहीं देता. Okay, so just import useScroll from framer motion, and this takes a bunch of options. So one is target. Target is for which target you want to calculate the scroll by progress. So this should be a ref. So let's pass a ref, and then I'll attach this ref to the second section, because the first section is already in the viewport, right? And I should trigger the animation for the second one. So this one is the first, this one is the second. So second, when the second touches this, I should start making the animation, right? So that's why the second ref, and then third one will have another ref. Okay, now the point is offset. Offset, let's say start, end, and end comma end. What does it mean? To understand what does it mean, let's see what it returns. It returns scroll x progress, scroll y progress. So I'll just get the scroll y progress. So now the scroll y progress is basically a value from 0 to 1. Okay, yeah, you're here. The scroll y progress is basically a value from 0 to 1. With the target, you can also pass a container, right? I mean, for which container you want to measure this, and if you don't pass a container, the entire window works as a container. So now let's see. So this is start, end, end, end. This means when the start of the target meets the end of the container, then only start making the progress. And when the end of the target meets the end of the container, then it will be 1. So in between that, the value should be 0 to 1. Okay, so if I just go to console, target, right, and how can I see the data? Let me just use a hook called use motion value event. I'll pass the scroll by progress. This is on change. I want to trigger a function. Let's say latest value. I'll just log the latest value. Yeah. So now this is my target. Now the point it touches the end of the container, the start of target meets the end of the container, it's 0.1, 2, 3, and it's going. And the point, the end of the target meets the end of the container, it should be 1. See? 1. It means it can also be start comma start, right, instead of end comma end, and this will still be same, right? Okay. Now you can also pass like when the start of the target meets the center of the container, then you start the progress. Okay, so look at this. This is still 0, and now this is center, and now 0 to 1, right? And not only value, you can also pass like pixels, pass percentage. So by default, like center means 50%, right? So now let's do one thing. When the start of the target meets 80% of the container, then it will be 0.001, and it will end when it meets the 20%. Let's see. It goes here, and now it is like 90%, and now it is 80%. It started like 30, 25, 20, 1, right? So now if you notice, I have the height of this particular container. This inner container has 40 viewport height. The entire window has 100 viewport height. It means we need to calculate only the middle 40%, only this part. When the start of the target meets 70%, and it ends when the start of the container meets 30%. So 70 minus 30 is 40%, and since the height of the window is 100 viewport height, so it's 40% is justifying. So let's see. So it touches now, so 0 point whatever, and 8.3, and now it should be 1. Yeah, that's all. right? So for your convenience, I'll just add one comments and how this value is calculated, and one comment here. Nice. Now let me just create a custom hook for this. So const use scroll by progress, this is this, and this will return us ref and the scroll by progress. That is great. Oh, I'll just use this, I don't need this part. So const scroll by progress, this should return me a ref and the scroll by progress. I'll just rename the ref to target ref idx1, and this is idx2. I also need one more. Right, it is getting all this data. You scroll by progress. I'm calling this hook 2 times and this is returning me 2 refs. So I'll just add 1 ref to the first div, I mean the second div with the index 1, and 1 to a third div. Okay, this is fine so far. And now let's try to create one component for this part, right? So this is just a markup component. Will have a lot of data, like all this data here. Right, so I already have the data here, which is in this Apple scroll mask data. Like it's basically an array of objects which has a title, description, icon URL, class names, and the media URL. Media URL is this part, the image or the video. Let me just quickly create one component. There's nothing to do with this animation. So, okay, let's create the, I don't know, what's the name of the section? Instead of wipe section, let's say feature section. Okay, this should get a forward ref. Please copilot, please, yes. Oh, great. Okay, so I basically created one component called feature section that is getting the forward ref. And by the way, you don't need forward ref in React 19. And the ref type is HTML div element. The property types are like, I'm just deriving the property types from the array. And then it's getting the props, refs, and this is just a markup which is just rendering the data. So now instead of returning null, if I just render feature section data with this, if the idx is 1, just return 1. If the idx is 2, just return idx2, else null. So passing the correct ref, and now I should be seeing some data. Okay, great. P10 is fine. Now what? Now let's talk about the wipe container part, which is the masking animation, right? So let me just help you to understand how the mask works first. So the entire mask will go here, right? So let me just collapse all the other elements so that we can focus on the main part. Cool. Okay, so to help you understand how the mask works, I'll just import 2 image URLs, and that 2 image URLs are these two. One is this one which has this silver MacBook, and the second one is which is this pink MacBook, right? So let me just quickly import these 2 image URL. Okay, just add the animation mask. Cool. So I'll just add one image. Image ka source should be, let's say, Mac Silver for now, and I'll add some class name which is widthful, heightful, and object cover. So I should be seeing one image here, right? Now let's try to add a mask class. Just open our CSS file. So my CSS file is here. I'll just add a mask class. So mask is, just think about the mask as the opposite of background image. The background image is in the background of the element, but the mask is at the top of the element. So all the elements which is under the mask will be affected by the mask. The mask works with the alpha value. I'll tell you how. So mask image property, I can just add a linear gradient here. Yeah, I mean RGBA from 0000 to RGBA 01. Look at this. This has this gradient effect, right? The fade-in effect. Now what does it mean? It means, see, this is 0, right? It is coming from transparent to non-transparent. And once the alpha value is 0, so all the elements under the mask will have the opacity 0. So alpha basically controls the opacity. And 1 means the opacity is 1. I mean, it is as simple as that. And all the elements which is under the mask will be affected by this. And since the image has the mask and the mask is always at the top, as I told you, is opposite to background image. So the image will be affected by the mask, right? So now it means if I do something like this, let's say 0, all the alpha value is 0. So now all the images, the entire image is hidden, right? Because the opacity is 0. So now I can make this 1 and 1, so the entire image will be visible because the opacity is 1, right? It doesn't matter if the color is red, blue, whatever, but it only works with the alpha value. I mean, the alpha value is the only thing that matters. It means if I now wrap the entire image with a div and just add absolute position, insert, and add the mask here and remove the mask from here, it should still work, right? Let me just make this alpha 0. So see, the fading is working because, as I told you, the mask affects all the elements which is under that particular mask, and since the image is under that, so it will affect that. So now the interesting part is you can also add mask size. So mask size, let's say width is 100%, height is 100% by default, and then actually I can set like instead of 100 height, just use 10%. So now see, the mask is being repeated. Now what I want, mask repeat, no repeat. Okay, now see, only the 10% of the mask is applicable, but what about the rest of the 90%? The rest of the 90% has the alpha value 0. So when the mask is not 100%, for example, let's say mask height is 50%, the other 50% has the alpha value 0, right? Okay, so now I can say, hey, do one thing, just show the entire element, let's say 0,1. So now only the 10% mask is applicable. If I do like, I mean, the 10% of the element is fully visible, the 50% is fully visible, right? I'll just change the mask position to center and bottom so that it starts from the bottom, and let's say 20%. Fine. Okay, now one interesting part is, let's say I'm just duplicating this div. Okay, and this time this is not max silver, this is max pink. Now instead of adding the mask at the first element, I'll just add the mask at the second element, right? So because of the z index, the second element is at the top of the first element, right? So now if you notice, only 20% of that top element is visible. So if I do 70%, see 70%, right? 0% is 0%. And also instead of adding the mask like in CSS, I can just use some tailwind things. Yeah, this basically does the same thing. I can just remove this mask part, and now like if you can hover over this, it does the same thing. Like as of now the mask is 0%, and now if I do mask is 90%. Oh, what if I do mask is 90%, then 90% of the element is visible. So now you get the idea, right? We basically need to transform the scroll by progress, which is from 0 to 1, to this 0% to 100%, and that should do my job, because by default it's 0%. So first thing first, I'll just convert this to a separate component. Just to check if the scroll by progress is working or not, I'll just use a useScroll. Oh, no, not useScroll, use motion value event. I'll just pass the scroll by progress. This is change. On change, I want to run a callback function. Yeah. So instead of this, I'll just map over the entire data. What is the item, feature item data, map over this, get the item, and just return the wipe container. Yeah. Oh, complicated. Item dot media URL. If the IDX is 1, scroll by IDX 1. If the else IDX 2. No, this is wrong actually. What if the IDX is 0? And so for that, when the IDX is 0, the scroll by progress is already 1, right? So for that, we'll be creating one manual value. Const scroll by progress with IDX 0 is use motion value 1. So now if the idx is 0, it should be 0, else 1, else 2. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'll just go to console and look, this is the first element, and now yeah, it's working for the second element, and now for the third. Let's clean the console. Yeah, it's working. So now you just need to transform this value to the height of the mask size, right? For that, what can I use? We can use the use transform hook. I'll just go inside the wipe container. I don't need this part. I'll just go use transform. This will just transform the scroll by progress from 0 to 1. If you have been using reanimated, like it's basically the same as interpolate. So now what I want this to be converted from 100% to 0%, like 100% 100%, like 100% 0% to 100% and 100%. And now I'll just grab this value to transformed mask size, and now I'll just add a style here. This mask size is transform mask size. It's giving error because this component is not a motion component yet, so just convert this to a motion component. I'll just import motion from framework motion. Come on. Yeah, okay, I think that's all from my side. Let's see. Okay, wow, it's actually working. Nice. So yeah, that's all from my side. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. I'll be posting all this code to my GitHub, so if you have any doubt, you can just go there and check the code out, else you can just comment down below, okay, if you have any doubts or not. Apart from that, please subscribe to this channel. I'll be putting a lot of contents basically on this channel, on animation, on React Native, on Next.js, whatever I can find out. Okay, so that's it from my side. See you in the next video. Bye.